As you head through the downtown Oakland BART subway towards San Francisco, you'll find yourself coming back up elevator to serve West Oakland, before descending again into the Transbay Tube. You'll also spot a freight rail yard, and if you're lucky, you might catch an Amtrak train passing by. West Oakland as a neighborhood has been largely shaped, or more accurately, destroyed, by segregation when highways came around to wipe out the best part of a century of its railway legacy. But not for too long. The area could have a bright future ahead if plans are to be fulfilled that call for a new mainline railway station right next to the BART station. Today I wanted to talk about the impact that project could have, why it's needed, and how best to do it. Remember how in April I said that I was doing a 3-part series about future Bay Area rail projects? Well, it's been a while, but this is finally part 2. And don't worry, part 3 is already in production. It won't be too long away. West Oakland would get its first taste of railroading in the 1860s, when it became the western terminus of the first American transcontinental railway. This area was a key hub for Southern Pacific's operation, with 16th Street Station being a major landmark. SP operated a wide range of services, such as the City of San Francisco, which never actually went to San Francisco, and was the predecessor to the modern-day California Zephyr, running all the way to Chicago. Other services included further long-distance SP trains to Oregon, Utah, and Southern California, and a variety of interurbans known as the East Bay Electric Lines. These would compete head-on with the Key system, but unlike that operator, actually got to use the elevated platforms, though the Key system would have the last laugh, lasting until 1958, while the East Bay Electric ceased operations in 1941, just 2 years after the Bay Bridge began carrying trains. Throughout this time, West Oakland also remained a hotspot for African American culture along 7th Street mainly. All this history, however, would be undermined as railroading died out in favor of the automobile, with some of the most aggressive redlining you'll ever see slicing the area apart. Interstate 980 created a divide between the west and downtown, while the north end of 880 directly follows the path of the SP line. The 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake is often cited as the reason why 16th Street Station was closed, and trains stopped serving that station a few short years later. Even when BART came along, the station spent the best part of 20 years being called Oakland West, which is not only weird to say in English, it's also just not the name of the neighborhood. The decision to have it elevated rather than underground also meant disrupting businesses, entertainment venues, and even housing, and the arrival of the USPS distribution center next door didn't help either. The station itself has a smaller concourse compared to even some suburban BART stations, and its immediate walk shed is filled to the brim with parking. Moreover, as I discussed before, its layout being 2 side platforms rather than one wide island platform means it's very difficult to use the station as a transfer point, especially if you have reduced mobility and need an elevator. In an ideal world, this station would be a very natural point to make transfers across different BART services, being at one of the tips of the Oakland Y, and where the red and yellow lines diverge from the green and blue, forming a divide between the north and south coverage of BART in the East Bay. It's all a little disappointing for the station that gets the most BART trains among all stations in Oakland, with identical service to every station in San Francisco. In some senses, this should be the city's main hub for transit-oriented development and local buses. Instead, only 4 AC transit routes call here, none of which are particularly frequent. But here's the thing, in the present day, Oakland doesn't really have a central train station. BART covers downtown and many inner-city neighborhoods quite well, running at high frequency and with large trains offering plenty of capacity. 12th and 19th Street stations have very strong bus connections too, which includes links to the Tempo Bus Rapid Transit line. Unfortunately, BART's biggest weakness in Oakland is the lack of a smooth connection to mainline rail. Jack London is considered the main Amtrak station, which is where the San Joaquins terminates. It's not too far from BART, but it is still a bit of a walk away. It's currently at grade, but there are plans to elevate it, which would be a big help. And interestingly, the signs at Lake Merritt Station actually direct you to Jack London. Emeryville, meanwhile, is the California Zephyr's terminus, and sees all services stop, but it's a bit of a local transit desert, despite all its hype for being some kind of urbanist paradise, which I don't really agree with, but whatever. There's also Coliseum, which is served by BART, though it only has 1 track, and just the Capitol Corridor stops there. In some senses though, Oakland's most important station could be considered to be Richmond. Despite being further away and not actually in Oakland at all, It sees BART and most Amtrak services in the same facility, though Coast Starlight doesn't stop there for reasons. That said, it's still a more pleasant place to change trains than Coliseum, and the transfer is pretty seamless, not requiring you to leave the building. You can see just how important Richmond as a node was, as they tried to turn it into a transit village of sorts. That never really materialized. Now all of this is where Link 21 comes in. If you're not aware, this is the long-term project to build a second rail crossing under the San Francisco Bay, which was just recently chosen to be standard gauge instead of BART's broad gauge. Most discourse around this project has been around which choice of gauge is better, so to speak, and while I've long preferred the BART option, there are ways to do both options well and ways to do both poorly. So now that it's been chosen, let's instead spend time talking about how to do it best. One of the main objectives of Link 21 and the California State Rail Plan more broadly is some kind of integrated BART and mainline station at West Oakland. This would likely be underground, as the second Transbay 2 makes a turn to the north from Alameda, heading towards West Oakland, then rejoining the main line above ground towards Emeryville. Man, I wish we could just bulldoze this bit of 880, this would make it a lot easier. Some of the trains from Alameda would instead make the turn southeast to new underground platforms at Jack London, then continue on to a rebuilt Coliseum station. The West Oakland station, though, would bring tons of benefits. It will obviously be a valuable BART to Amtrak connection and hopefully spur even more development to the area, on top of the 700 odd units already planned by BART. But the big thing I'm excited about is redundancy. Having a station here will give people multiple options to cross the bay. Let's say you're on a Caltrain or Capital Corridor or whatever really, some regional rail service that uses the UP mainline and the new Transbay 2. It's going to Salesforce Transit Center, which is great if you want a one-seat ride to San Francisco, but in reality, it's only really a one-seat ride to the Financial District and Soma. So let's suppose your ultimate final destination is somewhere else on the BART network, or just a different part of San Francisco altogether. Of course, SFTC will still have underground connections to BART's Embarcadero or Montgomery stations, but it'll be a lot easier potentially to make that mainline to BART transfer at West Oakland compared to having to walk quite a hefty distance at the much busier Salesforce. And West Oakland being right at the exit of the first Transbay tube means it gets the same level of service that you get in the Market Street subway. Of course, this is just one example, and maybe your final destination is better served by Muni Metro or a Muni bus that stops at Salesforce like the 38, but that's the point. Good transit networks will always give you different routes between major urban centers, and having the decision point right before the crossing will make a difference. West Oakland becoming a more important rail station could also lead to the much needed increase in bus service in the area. Again, just 4 AC transit lines currently serve the BART station, which is a crying shame. And last but not least, more people from all over the Bay would get to take the train to see the incredible Oakland Ballers, whose home at Raimondi Park is about a half-mile walk away. Now, all this talk of Link 21, Caltrain in Oakland, a new Transbay tube, Capital Corridor to San Francisco, there's quite a lot that could be done with Link 21, and it's going to take a lot of time to unpack what the service patterns could look like, what the implications are, and just the whole execution of Link 21 so far in terms of planning and pitching it. It's quite a deep rabbit hole, and that is going to be part 3 of this future Bay Area series. So yeah, I've got some pretty spicy opinions to share, so stay tuned for that.
Colma. All passengers must exit at next stop.